Hey everyone, imagine facing down an enemy in a war zone, only to come home and be bullied by someone hiding behind a badge. I'm Lila Carter, and this is the story of how one traffic stop sparked a battle against a corrupt cop who thought his authority was untouchable until I showed up in court with my military ID. Stick around for a tale of courage, betrayal, and justice. Like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Lila Carter, 34, stood in a Colorado Springs courtroom, her posture rigid from years of military discipline. The air was thick with tension as Officer Greg Harlan, a burly man in a crisp police uniform, sneered at her from across the room. "Who do you think you are, suing me? I'm a cop," he scoffed, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Lila said nothing, her face calm but unyielding. Slowly, she reached into her blazer, pulled out her military ID, and placed it on the table with a quiet thud. The room froze. Harlan's smirk faded as the judge leaned forward, reading the cards. Details: Captain Lila Carter, U.S. Army, retired, honorable discharge, Bronze Star recipient. Lila wasn't always a courtroom warrior. A former Army captain with 10 years of service, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan, she'd faced roadside bombs, ambushes, and the weight of leading soldiers under fire. Now she worked at Valor Haven, a Colorado Springs nonprofit helping veterans, especially women, transition to civilian life. Her days were spent navigating the invisible scars of war, PTSD, joblessness, and the struggle to find purpose after the uniform came off. Lila knew these battles firsthand. Her own transition had been rocky, nights haunted by memories of Kandahar, days spent proving her worth in a world that often dismissed female veterans. On a chilly November evening in 2024, Lila was driving home from a Valor Haven support group. The session had been heavy, 4 women sharing stories of trauma, from combat to the quieter pain of civilian rejection. Lila always stayed late, ensuring each woman felt heard. Her beat-up Jeep, adorned with a veteran license plate, hummed along a quiet road near her apartment. At 9:17 p.m., red and blue lights flashed in her rearview mirror. Lila's training kicked in, hands at 10 and 2, engine off, interior light on. She waited, alert but composed. Officer Greg Harlan approached, his stride aggressive, hand resting on his holster despite no visible threat. "Military, huh?" he said, eyeing her license plate with a sneer. "Let's see your papers. That veteran status doesn't get you a free pass." Lila handed over her driver's license and DD-214, the document proving her honorable service. Harlan barely glanced at them, his focus on intimidation. "I'm a police officer," he declared, as if it trumped all else. "I don't need a reason to pull over someone like you." Lila's pulse quickened, but she stayed calm, her combat-honed instincts suppressing the anger rising in her chest. "Someone like me?" she asked evenly. Harlan leaned closer, his voice low. "Unemployed vets who think they're above the law." The words stung, but Lila recognized the power play. She discreetly activated her phone's voice recorder, capturing every word. "I've heard worse from insurgents," she said softly. "Am I free to go?" Harlan's face reddened. "Watch your tone," he snapped, dragging the stop out for 25 minutes with questions about her job, her veteran status, and vague threats about knowing your place. Finally, he let her go with a warning to respect authority. Lila drove home, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. At her kitchen table, she stared at her DD-214, its list of commendations, Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal, mocked by Harlan's disrespect. She'd served her country, saved lives under fire, yet faced harassment on American soil from someone sworn to protect. The next morning, Lila filed a complaint with the Colorado Springs Police Department, attaching the recorded conversation and a detailed account of the stop. She reached out to 2 Valor Haven clients who'd mentioned similar encounters with Harlan, gathering their statements. 3 weeks later, the response came: insufficient evidence. Officer Harlan has an exemplary record. Case closed. That same day, an anonymous email landed in her inbox. "Drop it, vet. You can't beat real cops." The threat confirmed Lila's suspicions. Harlan wasn't acting alone. The department was shielding him either willfully or through negligence. Lila had survived Taliban ambushes and IED blasts. She wouldn't be cowed by a keyboard coward. She contacted the Veterans Justice Alliance, VJA, a non-profit specializing in defending veterans' rights, particularly women facing post-service discrimination. Her intake lawyer, Elena Ruiz, reviewed the case with a grim expression. "This isn't Harlan's first rodeo," Elena said, pulling out a folder. 5 complaints against him in 3 years, all from female veterans, all dismissed, and every complainant faced anonymous harassment afterward. Lila's stomach churned as she read the files. Harlan targeted women he thought wouldn't fight back, veterans struggling with PTSD, joblessness, or isolation. The pattern was clear: pretextual stops, verbal abuse, and institutional protection. "Why us?" Lila asked. Elena sighed. "Because he thinks you're easy targets. Female veterans often lack the resources or support to push back. He's banking on you giving up." Lila thought of her support group: women like Tara, a former medic battling nightmares, and Jess, a young vet facing homelessness. They deserved better than harassment from a predatory cop. "I want to sue," Lila said. Elena nodded. "Federal civil rights lawsuit. It'll be brutal. They'll attack your service, your mental health, everything. You ready?" Lila thought of the women, counting on her. "I've faced worse than lawyers," she replied. "Let's do this." The decision to sue Officer Harlan marked a turning point for Lila, but the path to justice was daunting. The Veterans Justice Alliance dove into preparation, with Elena Ruiz leading a team to build an airtight case. They needed to prove a pattern of misconduct, not just a single bad stop. Lila spent weeks gathering evidence, revisiting the pain of that November night while balancing her work at Valor Haven. Her days were a blur of client meetings, support groups, and late-night strategy sessions with Elena. Elena's team uncovered a disturbing pattern. Harlan's 5 prior complaints, all from female veterans, shared eerie similarities. Late-night stops, no clear violations, verbal abuse targeting their veteran status, and anonymous threats after complaints were filed. One woman, a former Navy petty officer, had moved out of state after relentless harassment. Another, a Marine vet, dropped her case when her PTSD worsened. The department's internal affairs had dismissed every complaint, citing Harlan's exemplary record and lack of corroborating evidence. Lila's recording was their ace. Harlan's voice, smug, dismissive, calling her an unemployed vet, was undeniable proof of abuse. But Elena warned that it might not be enough. "The defense will claim it's one bad day, not a pattern," she said. "We need more witnesses, more recordings if possible." Lila reached out to her network at Valor Haven, discreetly asking clients about encounters with Harlan. 2 women, Tara and Jess, agreed to provide statements, though both were hesitant. Tara feared retaliation. Jess worried about her unstable housing. Lila promised to protect them, drawing on her leadership skills from the Army to instill confidence. A new ally emerged: Marcus Tate, a retired Army sergeant and part-time volunteer at Valor Haven. Marcus had served with Lila in Afghanistan and knew her as a captain who never left a soldier behind. He'd heard rumors about Harlan's behavior from male veterans who'd witnessed his stops, but stayed silent, fearing trouble. Marcus offered to track down these men, leveraging his connections in the veteran community. "You're fighting for all of us," he told Lila. "I've got your back." Meanwhile, Lila faced personal challenges. Her PTSD, managed through therapy, flared under the stress. Nightmares of Afghanistan, dust, gunfire, the weight of a wounded soldier on her back, returned with intensity. She confided in her therapist, Dr. Claire Nguyen, who specialized in veteran trauma. Claire helped Lila ground herself, using breathing exercises and journaling to process the anger and betrayal. "You're not just fighting Harlan," Claire said. "You're fighting a system that lets men like him thrive. That's a heavy load." Anonymous threats escalated. Emails and texts, "Back off, vet. You'll regret this," arrived weekly. Lila forwarded each to Elena, who traced some to burner accounts but hit dead ends. The threats rattled her, but she refused to waver. She thought of Pop, her grandfather, a Vietnam vet who'd taught her to stand tall against bullies. His words echoed, "Courage isn't being fearless. It's doing what's right despite the fear." Marcus delivered a breakthrough. A male, veteran, Diego Lopez, who'd recorded Harlan harassing him during a stop. Diego, a former Air Force mechanic, had been too intimidated to report it but agreed to testify after meeting Lila. His recording captured Harlan mocking his veteran status and threatening arrest for disrespect. Combined with Lila's recording and the women's statements, the evidence painted a damning picture. Elena also secured expert testimony from Dr. Rachel Patel, a criminologist specializing in police misconduct. Dr. Patel analyzed Harlan's pattern, linking it to systemic issues in policing, implicit bias against veterans, particularly women, and a culture of protecting good cops despite red flags. The case was shaping up, but the defense would be ruthless. Elena warned Lila, "They'll dig into your past, your deployments, your PTSD, even your nonprofit work. They'll paint you as unstable." Lila prepared for the onslaught. She reviewed her military record: 10 years, 2 combat tours, a Bronze Star for saving 3 soldiers during an ambush. She'd carried a wounded private to safety under fire, her own leg bleeding from shrapnel. That moment defined her. Duty over self. Now she'd channel that resolve into the courtroom. But doubts crept in. What if the jury saw her as a troubled vet? What if Harlan's badge outweighed her service? The night before the trial, Lila sat in her apartment, staring at her Bronze Star and a photo of her unit in Kandahar. She thought of her oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Harlan wasn't a Taliban fighter, but his abuse of power was its own kind of enemy. She texted Marcus. "Ready for battle?" He replied, "Always. Cap, let's take this guy down." The trial began on a crisp March morning in 2025. The Colorado Springs courthouse packed with spectators. Local media buzzed about the veteran versus cop case, though most outlets focused on the drama rather than the stakes. Lila arrived in a navy blazer, an American flag pin on her lapel, her military bearing evident but understated. "Officer." Harlan entered in full dress uniform, medals gleaming, his stride confident. His lawyer, Paul Kendrick, had coached him to project authority, the picture of a decorated cop unfairly targeted. Kendrick's opening statement was predictable. Harlan was a 15-year veteran with commendations from the mayor and police chief, a pillar of the community. Lila, he claimed, was a troubled veteran with PTSD, seeking attention and a payout. "Ms. Carter has a history of clashing with authority," Kendrick said, citing her complaints against the department. "This lawsuit is a vendetta, not justice." Lila's lawyer, Elena, countered with a focus on evidence. "Officer Harlan targeted female veterans, abusing his authority to intimidate those he thought wouldn't fight back," she said. "We'll show a pattern of misconduct, protected by a system that values badges over truth." The jury, 6 men, 6 women, including 2 veterans, listened intently. Harlan testified first, painting himself as a dedicated officer who stopped Lila for suspicious driving. He denied targeting veterans, claiming his comments were misunderstood. Elena's cross-examination was surgical, playing Lila's recording. "I don't need a reason to pull over someone like you." Harlan stammered, insisting it was out of context. Diego's recording followed, further exposing his pattern. The jury's faces hardened. Lila took the stand, her voice steady despite Kendrick's aggressive questioning. "Ms. Carter, isn't it true you've been unemployed since leaving the Army?" he pressed. "I work at Valor Haven, helping veterans," Lila replied. "The pay is low, but the work matters." Kendrick smirked. "And you've filed multiple complaints, correct? A pattern of antagonism?" Lila met his gaze. "I've advocated for veterans when systems failed them, including this case." Kendrick pushed harder. "Your PTSD makes you unstable, doesn't it? This lawsuit is just a cry for attention." Lila paused, then reached into her blazer, pulling out her military ID and a small case. She placed them on the table. Her ID, listing her rank and service, the case revealing her Bronze Star. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Margaret Ellis, a Gulf War veteran, leaned forward, reading the citation. For heroic actions under fire, saving 3 soldiers during an ambush. In Afghanistan, Counselor, Judge Ellis said to Kendrick, are you aware of what a Bronze Star with valor signifies? Kendrick faltered. It's for bravery, Your Honor. Ellis's voice was sharp. It's for extraordinary heroism in combat, often at great personal risk. Ms. Carter carried wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. Did you know that when you called her unstable? Kendrick's confidence cracked. Elena seized the moment, presenting Tara and Jess's statements, Diego's recording, and Dr. Patel's testimony on systemic bias. The evidence was overwhelming. Harlan had targeted vulnerable women, banking on their silence. Lila's final statement was quiet but powerful. I served to protect this country. I didn't expect to come home and fight harassment from an officer who thinks his badge makes him untouchable. I'm here for every veteran who deserves respect, not abuse. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Lila sat with Marcus and Elena, nerves taut but resolve firm. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts of civil rights violations, harassment, and abuse of authority, relief washed over her. Harlan's face was ashen, his badge no longer a shield. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, but Lila remained, composed, her mission far from over. The verdict sent shockwaves through Colorado Springs. Media outlets shifted from sensationalism to substance, with headlines like, Veterans Lawsuit Exposes Police Misconduct. Veteran Networks Amplified. Lila's story and social media buzzed with support. Hashtags like Vet Justice and No Badge for Bullying trended, drawing attention to systemic issues. Lila, however, felt the weight of what came next. The trial was a victory, but the war for accountability was just beginning. Harlan faced immediate consequences. Suspension without pay, pending a federal investigation for civil rights violations. The department launched an internal review, spurred by public pressure and the trial's evidence. Lila's inbox filled with messages, support from strangers, gratitude from veterans, and requests for interviews. She declined most, focusing on her work at Valor Haven and the women who needed her. Tara and Jess, emboldened by the verdict, filed new complaints against Harlan, their cases now taken seriously. 3 other women from Elena's files came forward, their stories mirroring Lila's. The pattern was undeniable, forcing the department to confront its failures. Lila met with these women, forming a support group within Valor Haven to share resources and heal. You gave us a voice, Tara said, her eyes teary. Lila shook her head. You always had it. I just helped you use it. Marcus's role grew too. He organized a veteran town hall inviting police brass to discuss reforms. To Lila's surprise, 2 young officers, Officer Elena Martinez and Officer Sam Brooks, attended. Martinez, AI, rookie, approached Lila afterward. I'm a vet too, she said. Your case reminded me why I joined the force, to protect, not harm. Brooks handed Lila a card signed by 30 officers. Thank you for holding us accountable, Lila. Taped it to her office wall, a reminder that change was possible. Personal challenges persisted. The trial had drained Lila emotionally and financially. Legal fees, even with VJA's support, were steep. Her PTSD symptoms lingered, but Claire's therapy sessions helped her cope. A new subplot emerged with Lila's estranged brother, Nate, a former Marine who drifted from the family after his own troubled transition. Nate reached out after seeing news coverage, apologizing for years of silence. Their cautious reconnection became a source of hope, though trust would take time. Lila's story inspired broader change. The Veterans Justice Alliance launched Vet Shield, a program offering legal aid and advocacy for veterans facing harassment. Lila became an advisor, training others to navigate the system. Police departments in Colorado adopted veteran-focused training, emphasizing trauma-informed policing and bias awareness. Lila spoke at a state Senate hearing, her testimony shaping a bill to strengthen oversight of police misconduct. Yet Lila remained grounded. She wasn't a hero, just a woman who refused to stay silent. At Valor Haven, she expanded the support group, helping women like Jess secure housing and Tara pursue therapy. Nate visited, joining a group session and sharing his own struggles. The siblings began rebuilding, their shared military past a fragile bridge. As summer approached, Lila reflected on her journey. The traffic stop felt like a lifetime ago, but its lessons endured. Power unchecked breeds abuse, and courage can dismantle it. She looked at her bronze star, no longer a symbol of past battles, but a reminder of the fight she'd won. And the fight's still ahead. 8 months after the trial, Lila stood stronger, her life reshaped by the battle against Harlan. Valor Haven became a hub for veteran advocacy, with VetShield gaining national attention. Lila's role expanded, training advocates and speaking at veteran conferences, though she avoided the spotlight. Her focus remained on the women she served, whose resilience inspired her daily. The systemic changes continued. Colorado Springs Police Department fired Harlan after the federal investigation confirmed his violations. He faced charges, his pension revoked. The department implemented mandatory training on veteran issues, with Lila consulting on the curriculum. Other cities followed, citing her case as a model for reform. The state Senate passed the Veteran Protection Act, increasing penalties for targeting veterans and mandating independent reviews of police complaints. Lila's personal growth was profound. Therapy with Claire helped her manage PTSD, reframing her nightmares as proof of her survival. Nate became a regular presence, volunteering at Valor Haven and joining Lila on hikes in the Rockies. Their talks about war, loss, and redemption mended old wounds. "I should have been there for you," Nate said during a quiet moment. Lila squeezed his hand. "You're here now." The support group flourished, with Tara leading sessions and Jess mentoring new members. Lila organized a community barbecue, a nod to her grandfather Pop's belief in food as healing. Over 50 veterans attended, sharing stories under string lights. Marcus grilled, his laughter a balm, while Martinez and Brooks, the young officers, joined, bridging the gap between police and veterans. Lila felt Pop's spirit in the air, his lessons alive in this new family she'd built. Challenges remained. Some officers resisted the reforms, and anonymous threats trickled in, though less frequently. Lila ignored them, focusing on her mission. A new subplot emerged with a young vet, Aisha, who'd been harassed by a different officer. Lila guided her through filing a complaint, using VetShield's resources. Aisha's courage mirrored Lila's, a reminder that the fight was generational. Lila's financial strain eased as Valor Haven secured grants, partly due to her case's visibility. She moved to a small house near the mountains, a sanctuary for healing. Nate helped her paint the walls, their laughter echoing. Lila hung her bronze star beside a photo of her support group, symbols of battles won and bonds forged. The barbecue became an annual event, dubbed Pop's Gathering in her grandfather's honor. It wasn't just a party, it was a declaration that veterans deserved respect, not harassment. Lila looked at the crowd, Marcus joking with Tara, Jess teaching Aisha to grill, Nate swapping stories with Martinez, and felt a peace she hadn't known since Afghanistan. She'd reclaimed her purpose, not as a soldier, but as a defender of those who'd served. 2 years after the trial, Lila stood in Valor Haven's new community center, hosting the second Pop's Gathering. Over 80 veterans, families, and allies gathered under a Colorado sky, the air filled with laughter and the smell of grilled brisket. Lila surveyed the scene, Tara leading a kids' game, Jess mentoring Aisha, Marcus and Nate manning the grill, Martinez and Brooks sharing stories. With attendees, this was her legacy, a community built on respect, resilience, and accountability. Harlan's case had faded from headlines, but its impact endured. He was convicted on federal charges, serving time, and barred from law enforcement. The Veteran Protection Act inspired similar laws nationwide, and VetShield expanded to 10 states, supporting hundreds of veterans. Lila, now a program director at Valor Haven, trained advocates across the country, her story a blueprint for fighting systemic abuse. Her personal life blossomed. Nate moved to Colorado Springs, working as a mechanic and co-leading the support group. Their bond, once fractured, was now a cornerstone. Lila's PTSD, while not gone, was manageable, thanks to Claire's guidance and her community's support. She hiked weekly, the Rockies a reminder of her strength. Aisha, now stable, became a Vet Shield advocate, her case against her harasser, won with Lila's help. The broader veteran community embraced Lila's work. She received a letter from a young Army private, soon to leave service. "You showed me I can fight for respect at home, just like I did overseas." Lila filed it with hundreds of others, each a testament to her impact. She avoided fame, declining TV appearances, but accepted a quiet award from the veterans of foreign wars, dedicating it to her support group. At Pop's gathering, Lila gave a brief speech. "I didn't fight Harlan for me. I fought for every veteran who's been disrespected, dismissed, or silenced. Our service earned us dignity, and we'll keep demanding it." The crowd cheered, but Lila stepped back, letting Tara and Jess take the mic. This was their victory, too. Reflecting later, Lila realized her oath as a soldier, to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, hadn't ended with her discharge. She'd traded rifles for legal briefs, battlefields for courtrooms, but the mission remained: protect those who served. Harlan's badge hadn't made him untouchable. Her courage had made him accountable. Pop's words rang true. Courage is doing what's right no matter the cost. The gathering ended with a toast to Pop, to veterans, to justice. Lila looked at her bronze star, now beside a photo of the first Pop's gathering. The fight wasn't over. New Harlans would emerge, new battles would arise. But Lila was ready, armed with truth and a community that wouldn't stay silent. Have you or someone you know faced abuse of power? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you stood up or supported others. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with anyone who needs to know their voice matters. True honor isn't in badges or medals, it's in fighting for what's right. Thanks for watching, and let's keep pushing for justice together.